Maybe trauma is not the event. Maybe trauma is the wound that remains, all the experiences that don't leave bruises, but leave an imprint. The adaptation is evidence that your system was trying to help you survive. We assess, we address, and we adapt. That's survival. Because if anxiety, say for example, can be seen as a protector, fighting it may not be the answer. What happened that made these adaptations make sense? Well, welcome back to the podcast. In one of my more recent solo podcasts, I asked you guys to challenge a word, and that word was anxiety. Today, I'm coming to you because I want you to challenge another word, and that word is trauma. Now, this is obviously not because I don't believe in trauma. I'm known as a trauma care practitioner. I've studied trauma for years. It's actually quite the opposite. I think trauma is really one of the most important conversations that we can be having right now. I also think many of us have been taught to think about it in a way that's far too narrow. For most of my life, if you'd asked me whether I'd had trauma, I probably would have told you no, like without hesitation. I just would have said no. If you had asked me at 30 years old, I would have said no. If you had asked me at 40, I would have said no. Honestly, if you had asked me at 48 years old, I probably would have said no. What I would have told you is that I have anxiety, specifically generalized anxiety disorder. That was the diagnosis I had been given after my first nervous breakdown at age 30. Note to self, at the time of this recording, I am 54 and a half years old. So we're talking almost 25 years ago. And for years, that diagnosis became the lens through which I understood myself. I wasn't traumatized. I was an anxious person. And that distinction mattered because when you believe anxiety is the problem, you spend all of your energy trying to fix anxiety. And that's exactly what I did. I was in therapy on and off. I started that at age 15. I read every self-help book you could think of. I worked on personal development. I listened to podcasts. I did meditation workshops, anything that might help me understand why I felt the way that I felt. And despite all of that work, I kept finding myself asking the same question. Why do I understand what's happening to me, but nothing seems to change it? Meaning, why have I been in therapy for over 30 years and I'm still drowning in anxiety? What I didn't realize at the time was that what I was asking was the wrong question. Part of the reason I never considered trauma to be any part of this equation was because of what I thought trauma was. If somebody had asked me what I thought trauma was, I would have said it's violence, it's aggression, it's abuse, it's war, it's assault. It was a catastrophic, overt, in your face event. And to be clear, all those things can be traumatic. There's no questioning of that. But because that was my definition, I disqualified myself. I looked at my own experiences and thought, that doesn't count. Other people have it worse. I should be over it by now. I need to let it go. In fact, I think one of the most damaging messages that I internalized and was told over and over and over again was that if I was still affected by something that had happened years ago, that the problem wasn't what happened, the problem was me. I'm too sensitive. I'm too emotional. I'm too anxious. I'm too stuck. And what I realize now is that I was evaluating trauma by the event instead of the resulting wound. And those two things are not the same, guys. I want to take you back to when all of this started to shift for me. So everything started to shift when I began training to be a practitioner of something known as rapid transformational therapy. This is after I had opened my coaching practice. So I was 50 years old or 49 years old. And I decided that I was going to get trained by Marissa Peer in her therapeutic model that's done under hypnosis known as rapid transformational therapy. And one of the things that we do in RTT is help people trace present day struggles back to earlier experiences. And what fascinated me was that over and over and over again, People would come in with issues that looked completely unrelated: confidence issues, relationship issues, anxiety, people pleasing, perfectionism, fear of failure. And yet, when we followed the thread backwards, we often ended up at a moment, at something that was experienced, a belief that someone held on to that wasn't true, a hurt. And it was often not something that was overtly dramatic. In fact, more times than not, it wasn't. Sometimes it was a feeling of being unseen or feeling unheard or feeling rejected or embarrassed or unsafe or feeling responsible for someone else's emotions. And I remember thinking, hold up a second. If all roads lead back to a wound, maybe I've been asking the wrong question about myself all along. And maybe we're asking the wrong question about trauma. This is when I started to recognize maybe trauma is not the event. Maybe it's the actual impact from the event. Maybe trauma is the wound that remains after something happened. Now, around that same time, I was introduced to something known as the ACE study. So for those who are unfamiliar, ACE, it's ACE, stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And I was introduced to this study. I'll tell you a little bit more about it in a second. But when I took the assessment for myself, which is only 10 questions, and the scoring is a 0 to a 10, that my score was either a 4 or a 5, depending on how it was calculated. And honestly, that kind of surprised me. Not because I thought the number was high, but because I never considered some of those experiences relevant before. I had spent years dismissing that these experiences were meaningful or could have been impactful. I minimized them. I explained them away. And yet, here was a whole body of research suggesting that childhood experiences could actually have a long-term impact on someone's physical health, mental health, their relationships, and their overall well-being. That stopped me in my tracks. For the first time, I stopped asking whether it mattered or whether it counted, and I started asking whether it had an impact. And that shift changed a lot of things for me, because once I started looking through the lens of the impact, that's not something I could unsee. I could see the anxiety. I could see the hypervigilance. I could see the caretaking, the need to stay one step ahead, the pressure I put on myself to be the good daughter, to prove to myself that I wasn't the problem, to prove that I was worthy of being treated well, that I was worthy of love and belonging. Because even as helpful as ACEs were, I found myself still asking more questions, because there were things that I was seeing in clients every day that were definitely not reflected in those 10 questions. Things like emotional neglect or chronic criticism or feeling unseen, or things having to do with attachment wounds or adoption, or about all the experiences that don't leave bruises but leave an imprint. And that's where my curiosity really took off. I mean, guys, I was in like a deep consumption mode of knowledge for like 3.5 years. I didn't read anything for pleasure. I didn't watch anything for pleasure. It was all reading for really going deep into my understanding, my curiosity on all of this, listening to things, watching things. I mean, I was overly consumed, but I was overly consumed because for the first time in my life, my lived experiences and the impact that they left started to make sense. I've been told my whole life, let it go. There was something deeper inside of me. It wasn't about me not letting go and not being hypervigilant. There was a reason why the parts of me were like, we need to remember this and you need to stay on guard. So over time, I've come to believe through all of my studies and understanding my own lived experience that human beings do 3 things remarkably well. We assess, we address, and we adapt. Something happens, we assess what it means, we address it the best way we know how in that moment with the knowledge that we have at that age, at that time, and then we adapt. That's not what I'm going to call pathology, guys. That means it's not a disorder. That's survival. So let's take a look at that. A child assesses that my needs are too much. They address it by becoming low maintenance. They adapt through hyper independence. Or perhaps there's an experience where a child assesses that conflict isn't safe and they address it by keeping peace. And they adapt through extreme people pleasing, or what we also known as, or perhaps a child assesses that love happens when it's earned. And then it's addressed by becoming very, very useful. And they adapt through extreme caretaking and overachievement. This is what human beings do. We adapt. And that adaptation isn't the problem. The adaptation is evidence that your system was trying to help you survive in a moment and it worked. So it stuck. So you just kept doing it. But eventually, this stopped being about my clients. This became about me and remembering and realizing something. I had spent decades trying to fix adaptations that actually made perfect sense when I looked at the context. Honestly, I felt all the things when I recognized that: relief, anger, grief, validation, compassion. Relief because maybe there isn't actually something fundamentally wrong with me. Anger because I had spent years trying to fix myself because I was told I was the problem. And then there was grief because I realized how much time I had spent fighting myself throughout my lifetime. There was validation because suddenly everything was starting to make sense. And then there was compassion for myself because for the first time, I could look at younger Stacy very differently. The anxious Stacy, the hypervigilant Stacy, the caretaker, the overfunctioner, the woman constantly trying to prove that she was not the problem. And instead of seeing these as a problem or as flaws, I saw them as ways that I learned to adapt. But there was also another realization that hit me at the same time. And that was, for years, the story that I thought, the story that I was the anxious one, that I was the one who needed the therapy, that I was the one who needed fixing, that I was the identified, I'm going to put in quotes, patient or client. But here's what I see now. I wasn't the only one in my dynamic that was adapting. Everybody around me was adapting. My adaptation just looked like anxiety, but maybe somebody else's adaptation looked like conflict avoidance. And someone else's might have looked like people pleasing. And someone else's might have looked like an emotional shutdown. And somebody else's looked like perfectionism. And maybe somebody else's looked like becoming a caretaker or a peacekeeper or a workaholic, the hyper independent one who never asked for help. We were all adapting. The difference is, and this is the kicker, some of those adaptations get pathologized as a disorder, like generalized anxiety disorder, while others get praised. Think about that for a moment. The anxious person gets sent to therapy. The workaholic gets promoted. The people pleaser gets praised for being super nice. The caretaker gets admired for being there for everyone. I mean, I'm smiling. If you're watching me on YouTube, you know this, but if you're just listening, I'm like the massive smile on my face because it's so absurd. But this is what happens in this system of mental health. The perfectionism gets rewarded for high performance, and yet all of these things are adaptations. Nobody's born that way. Nobody's born a perfectionist. Nobody's born an overachiever. Nobody's born an extreme caretaker or a people pleaser or somebody who doesn't know how to set boundaries or anxious for that matter. All of those things can be attempts to create safety. That realization was so massive for me because anxiety wasn't the problem. It was the breadcrumb. It was a clue. And that realization over many years eventually led me to create a lot of content for you guys. But more specifically, I've created some systems. One is known as the Calm Code, which is a course that I teach 8 weeks to teach you how to have a better relationship with all the parts of you, but specifically anxiety. And the other is something called the Hurt Assessment. And I didn't do these because I wanted another assessment, not because I wanted another course or another program, but because I wanted people to start seeing the patterns I started to recognize, because I could not heal what I didn't understand. And seeing patterns helps people understand something. So to stop asking what was wrong with me, but to start asking what happened, what was missing, what did I learn, how did I adapt, what makes this make sense? And once I began to see the pattern, a different question emerged. How do I relate to these adaptations differently? Because if anxiety, say, for example, can be seen as a protector, fighting it may not be the answer. Maybe understanding it is, relating to it differently is. Maybe the goal isn't getting rid of anxiety, which I spent 30 years doing. Maybe the goal is building a different relationship with it, one that's rooted in pure curiosity, one that's rooted in compassion and understanding, where all of our parts are welcome, one where we stop trying to exile something that's been protecting us and begin understanding what it's been protecting all along. Looking back now, I thought forever I was very broken. And it makes me so crazy. I hate that so much because I now know that nobody's really broken at all. Everybody's just adapting in their own way. That when you go to my website, the first thing you will see is you are not broken. It is so important for me to have people understand that, because I hear people coming in and telling me that all the time. So looking back, I don't see someone who was broken. I see someone who assessed, who addressed, and who adapted the best way she knew how. And honestly, I wish someone had explained that to me sooner, because for years, I thought healing meant becoming less anxious. If I'm less anxious, then I'm healed. Does that track? Today, I think healing means becoming more understanding with myself and my parts, understanding what wounds occurred at different times in my life, and understanding the adaptations that I created in order to not touch the wound, understanding the parts of me that have been working so hard to protect that wound. Because once I understood that, it made sense. I understood what made that make sense. And then I could stop fighting it. When we stop fighting ourselves, healing finally has a space. It finally has room to begin. So maybe the question that people need to be asking themselves isn't, did I have trauma? I mean, I get that question. Does everybody have trauma? Was that my trauma? It's really not the right question. The right question is, what happened that made these adaptations make sense? And if you're willing to get curious about that, you might discover that things that you've spent years criticizing yourself for are actually breadcrumbs for you yourself. They're clues pointing towards a story that deserves to be understood and heard. Because once you're in that space, everything can start to shift. So this is just me coming on, trying to share with you a download from my head. I hope it helps. I really hope that by explaining my own lived experience through how I even got to this place to begin with gives you perhaps a little bit more of a roadmap of ways that you could explore your own challenges. If you've gotten this far in the podcast, I want to say thanks for spending 20 minutes with me today. And until next time, stay curious. I'll see you on the flip side.